there's a community of supporters with whatever illness you have that you can talk to or lean on. So I just want to remind you of that. Like you're still worthy of everything in life that you want to go after, even if there's an illness attached to that.
Welcome to the Mighty Emotions podcast. I'm your host, Giselle. I'm a certified emotions coach, and I teach you how to respond better to your emotions so you can feel better in your life. My mission is to show you how to work with your emotions to become more emotionally resilient. Your emotions are not designed to overpower you. They're designed to empower you. On this podcast, I share what our emotions are, how to understand them and work with them, and the tools you need to reclaim your power and get unstuck from emotional pain so you can find fulfillment in your life again. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's get into the episode. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to another episode of the Mighty Emotions podcast. We have another guest today, which I'm really excited about. I asked my friend Emily to come on, and she is a new mom, so this is a real gift that she is gracing us with her presence. She is a Canadian endometriosis advocate and an author, and we're going to talk more about her book later on in the episode because I'm so excited about it, and I will share why. But I've been following Emily on her journey that she's been sharing on Instagram and on YouTube about struggling with endometriosis, and just seeing how she's created this community around it and brought so many people together and allowed so many people to feel seen and heard and safe on a journey that I'm sure can be painful, which she's going to share with us literally and otherwise. So thank you so much, Emily, for agreeing to be a guest.
Of course. Thank you so much. What a beautiful intro. I feel honored to be here and be a part of the podcast. So, hey, everyone.
Yes. So I want to know, because we knew each other back in the day.
Yeah.
And when I briefly attended university, which if you read my book, you'll know what that means. But I had no idea that you had endo. And I'm just wondering, kind of, when did you know? Was it something that you knew and you just kind of didn't talk to people about? Like, how did your journey with this kind of evolve?
Yeah, that's a great point. So, funny enough, I didn't even know I had endo at that point in university. So, I started feeling like weird period pain back in high school. And it took me so long, probably 14, 15 years to actually get a proper answer to the pain I was experiencing.
Wow.
So way beyond the time frame of when we met, I actually received a diagnosis for suspected endometriosis back during the pandemic. So it wasn't
Wow.
until more recently where I started my Instagram page and started sharing my story, because I was like, how can it take that long to finally have an answer to the pain I was experiencing
Mm,
back in high school? And so for you and I to be friends that far along, I wouldn't even have had the name to it to describe it. It was just like, oh, I have really bad period pains or really bad, brain fog or fatigue. And I think I just have it associated with the sports I do or the staying up
mm,
late to study or whatever it is. And it was
right.
something I would correlate to not my period. So yeah, it took me a long time to figure out that pain.
And that's so interesting because I guess what was it that then led you to wanting an answer? Like, when was the moment where you were like, no, I can't, like, what is this? I can't keep going with this.
Yeah, so it was actually funny enough back in university when I was procrastinating, studying or writing a
Yes.
paper. I ended up going on Google and I was searching up symptoms that I was experiencing constantly. So every month I would have excruciating pelvic abdominal pain and a weird leg pain that would be kind of like a period pain in my thigh, is the best way I can describe it. And I went on Google and I was just typing in all of my symptoms and up popped like endometriosis. And I didn't know how to pronounce it. I didn't know what it was. I started going down this huge rabbit hole of what this could be, what I'm thinking is happening to my body. And it turns out that 1 in 10 individuals who menstruate have endometriosis. So it was more common than I originally gave face to that pain. And so I was kind of like determined at that point to avoid all my school studies
Of course.
and and just go to doctors and walk-ins. And I probably saw 8 doctors in a span of 2 to 3 years just to
Wow.
try and find answers of people saying, no, it's normal period pain. You're just one of the unlucky ones, to finally finding a specialist in Toronto that said, I think you have endometriosis. And it was that, okay, like it's that battle is done to find an answer. But now the battle of dealing with that name
Mm.
began after that. So yeah, it was a long journey, and but it was during that university time where I kind of started on the path to get answers for endo.
I'm so glad you shared that because I'm sure that I have listeners that maybe have some of those symptoms and maybe do kind of justify it in their heads and don't realize that is there something more, and the fact that you kind of trusted your intuition and followed that
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
really huge, right? Because you were like, "No, I don't think
Yeah.
so.
And like
Period
the
pain in
thing
my
I like to
leg, hmm."
yeah, it's fine. It's just a part of course every month. But the thing I like to say to people is like, you know your body best, right? Like you know when something is off, you know when you feel sick or a little off. And if it's happening to your body every single month, it's kind of like an aha moment of, okay, there's something larger here that's like not just a one-off spin class that made my leg hurt or whatever it may be. So that's something I would definitely say. Like if you're feeling pain or you're feeling discomfort every month, or even outside of your period, and it's just common stuff you're feeling, it's great to
Mhm.
talk to a doctor that believes your pain, number one, and like listens to you, because that can sometimes be hard to come by at times
A
as well.
Absolutely, and I think it's similar to how I teach about emotions, where it's like, if your body is showing up, is having certain reactions, there's something for you to look at, like, there's something more,
Hmm.
like, what's kind of abnormal and what's kind of normal
Hmm.
or what's kind of standard, and so definitely trusting your body on all levels.
Yeah.
But I wanna talk about what you were feeling throughout this, both kind of having to figure this out almost on your own, not really getting people to who believed it or needing to find
Hmm.
different job like, what were the kind of emotions that you were grappling with throughout that kinda
Yeah.
early journey?
Well, it's so funny that you say that with like, you know what's normal and not normal. And it's so funny because when you know something's off with your body, but you're always told it's normal to have period pain, it's like a weird juxtaposition because you're like I'm told it's normal, but I
Mm,
feel like it's not normal. And so yeah, again, trusting your instincts. But a lot of the time I would just see a doctor and be brushed aside and say, okay. And then the next month I'd be like, no, I'm frustrated or I'm in excruciating pain where I'm like, I cannot live like this. I can't live my life without pain management or like options for my body to feel at a state of normalcy for me, which was
mhm,
like less pain than what I was experiencing every single week or month. And so I was on that journey. I was frustrated. I was angry at a lot of the things, the institutions,
mhm,
like the educational system of not letting me know that period pain can be not normal and that it's common, but it's not normal. I was mad at, the healthcare system for kind of maybe not allowing support there to go further to a specialist or whatever it may be, like just to get other pain management options out there. I felt scared, and I still sometimes do for the pain, one remaining or two
mm,
getting worse, because some at times some people say oh, it gets better over time and I feel less symptoms because you find more of a rhythm with what helps and what doesn't, but
mhm,
sometimes some individuals find the opposite. So that's a fear that I still kind of have. But the last thing I'll say is that I feel hope because
mm,
with all that fear and that feeling of scaredness, I guess,
mhm,
um, is that there's getting more awareness around endometriosis and we're talking more about periods and we're
mhm,
being more open about it, which makes me hopeful that one, there's more awareness to say, hey, like they're having a flare up right now, or they're just not feeling themselves because of this. And hopefully from that, more research and funding for pain management options comes down the pipes, which can help generations after myself to not wait 14 years for an
mhm.
answer for the pain that they're experiencing.
And to
So
be
lots of
alone with
emotions.
that pain and to be confused about that pain, for
Yeah.
especially when we're young, because 'cause we're just confused in general. I mean, I
Oh
thought I
yeah.
was dying when I got my period. I was like, "I'm bleeding internally, I'm dying,"
Oh gosh, yeah.
because no one explained it to me. I was like, "What's happening?"
Like a normal period, you're like, what is happening?
I know. I was like, no one had explained it to me. I was in the bathroom by myself. I was like, I'm dying. Like I was really
Yeah.
convinced. And so like yes, normalizing it, talking about it. Also, we're both mothers of female like
Mhm.
daughters
Yeah.
who will menstruate one day and it looks I know that I got my period at different times from my friends and the way they
Mhm.
got theirs was different from mine and our bodies all work differently. So
Yeah.
it's so, so beautiful that there's more of this awareness out there so that people can feel a little bit less frustrated and confused and alone.
Yeah.
And I know that you've talked to a lot of other women in the
Mhm.
work that you do who've gone through it. And I'm sure that there's been also a variety of emotions that have come up for them, right?
Yeah. Yes, of course. Yeah, some don't really feel, like, comfortable sharing their story out loud yet, and that's perfect for their journey too. Like, some people find it traumatic to dive back into their experiences or their gaslighting through the medical system, and it can be traumatic to kinda live with. So, that's one aspect that we've seen, emotion-wise. Some feel really motivated to get change. So a lot of people in Ontario and federally are advocating for change. So you see a huge movement right now across the country, but also in Ontario, where we both live, is you see a huge movement of gender diverse peoples, women, men getting together and creating that change. And I think from that is anger. I think that's like fueling that
Yes.
momentum. So definitely a mix of emotions, and even individuals that still don't have a proper name to their pain, but they think it's endo. So you
Mhm,
see people at the beginning of their journeys like reaching out to a lot of those in the community, or just asking for more information of, is this a proper symptom of endo? And that's hard
mhm,
to answer because it presents so differently for each individual, and the
mhm,
severity of pain, right? Like our pain thresholds are different from one another. So that's been an interesting thing to see as well. Of, okay, I see this thing in the news now, or I see it in the media, and I think I have it, but I'm not quite sure. So
mm,
a little bit of that fear base as well is still kind of, or even like intrigue, like what is this, and how can it
mhm.
impact me, right?
Your
So
curiosity.
yeah,
Yes. And the
definitely.
fear, like, definitely when you feel like I'm glad you brought up that term gaslighting. It's
Mhm.
that lack of safety, like
Mhm.
not knowing who you can trust, not knowing who you can turn to, feeling alone. So then
Mhm.
getting these these people that are getting together and organizing and bringing awareness and advocating, it provides that sense of safety, that psychological safety. Like, okay, people are behind me. I'm not alone with this. I have
Yeah,
support, so that's huge, right? And the
yeah,
anger being the fuel and the motivation, absolutely, that's kind of where change comes from is the outrage sometimes.
yeah,
Which is like the mix of the sadness as well, like the sadness at what we have to endure sometimes, the sadness about what our body is going through,
yeah,
um, and all the kind of extra things that we have to do that maybe other people don't have to do.
yeah.
And I don't know, does that relate to your journey or what you've heard other people share?
Yeah, I think on the sad that's a great point, the sadness piece. I think that's what I think a lot of people, when they find whatever diagnosis you have or whatever change in life that happens, there's like a grieving process of what I thought my life would look like, or what I thought my capabilities would be, or whatever it may be. There's always like a chapter I find in everyone's journey. But with a chronic illness, specifically endo, it when I first was diagnosed with suspected endo, I wasn't pregnant yet, and I didn't know if I would be able to. And a lot of the symptoms with endo range, but one is infertility. So
Mm,
that kind of kicked in, and it makes you feel fearful of, or sad of, you're kind of grieving ahead of time because you're
mhm,
like, I just don't know if that's going to be in my chapter book or in my, the option for me. And so that's something that the community of endometriosis sufferers has been a real, saving grace during that period, because I leaned on a lot of people to say, how is everyone feeling here? Like, are we still going through
mhm,
this same kind of thought process? And to have friends and family that don't have that same pain, right? Like, I don't have anyone in my family that had severe period pain. So I
mm,
just felt, okay, I am one of the unlucky ones that just has it. And you just feel a little alone. But having that
mhm,
community to build you up, to have that foundation of support, to say, listen, you're not alone in that experience. You're not alone in that grief. I go through it too, and I think that a lot of people go through that grieving stage, but at the end of it, I want to say that there is light and there is hope and there is momentum for change, and there will be sad days with it because it is something that impacts you in your life and
Mhm.
potentially your capabilities of what you want to do, but you work around it and you find new ways to do things. And you, like, I love to hike, so I just find maybe a hike with less hills or like
Mhm.
a little less long, and but I'm still able to do the things I love. And you learn your body and you learn what you can or cannot do based on your own, I guess, threshold of what you're able to do. So in the journey of
Yes.
fear and whatever else is going on emotion wise, you find more of yourself, which is also a blessing in disguise. I always like
Oh,
to say, like, pain through pleasure, not pain through pleasure, but like you find pain, and purpose, right? You find your purpose through that
mm.
pain.
Absolutely. And like
Mm-hmm.
the journey of being a human comes with so
Mm-hmm.
many emotions on its own that when we have challenges on top of that, it adds to that stress and that strain. But I loved how you said, I love hiking and that feels restorative to me. So I'm going to adapt how I hike so that I can still get that need met. And I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
it has such an impact on you physically because at least in the research that I've done and the training that I have, like there's such a connection between our emotions and our physical health, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not that, one is it's just that when we can take care of ourselves internally, like take care of ourselves by getting that community, getting that support, not carrying the emotions around with us and being alone with it and being weighed down
Mm-hmm.
by it, but still like moving through it despite
Yeah.
the pain is
Yeah.
huge. And
Yeah.
I want to touch upon a while back, you had shared in one of your YouTube videos
Mm-hmm.
about kind of pivoting away from how you were speaking about endo. I don't know if you remember this, but kind of um, wanting to veer more toward the hopeful side. So was there like a switch for you where you kind of had healed some of, because you started this while it was your journey and you were moving through it and you were bringing people along and supporting people, but was there a point where you were like, yeah, I've kind of processed this and now I'm in a different place with it?
Hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think also too, like, yeah, definitely the journey of, okay, I've grieved on my own. And now that I'm facing a community, there's a platform here of people looking for one education, which I can, dive into and provide that scientific research and whatever it is. But also, I want to provide that platform of support and something that I needed in my journey that I feel like I didn't have. And sometimes when you find the chronic illness piece, it's sometimes fearful and negative. So I wanted to kind of switch the narrative and say, sometimes we say, why did this happen to me? Why
Mm,
me? But I always like to say, why not you? Like, why can't it be you to share information or to share lived experiences to strengthen a policy piece for change? Like, why can't it be you? And I
mm,
think having that mindset allowed me to see more positives in the journey because it can weigh you down some days, like just saying, like,
yeah.
like a flare up, like I'm in bed, I can't move, or I'm unable to do the things I want to do. But hey, like if I can change my mindset, which is
Mm,
it's a journey in itself every day, but if I can just have that little change of positivity, hopefully that will make someone less fearful in their journey when you're sharing out loud
mm,
and just make them feel less alone and more like empowered to love their bodies when they feel change is happening internally and to feel momentum to make change alongside that internal change, if that makes sense.
yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
we need the full range of it, right? It's about not just telling the narrative in one kind of limited way, but understanding that there's so much more possibility. And
Hmm.
because it can kind of bring about this, like we were talking about, the sadness, the fear, like it can leave people feeling really disempowered and hopeless and feeling like there's no cure and there's nothing I can do.
Hmm.
So hearing somebody who's like you, who's advocating for it, who's sharing the realities behind it, but also the both and, right? Like that element of yes, this is happening
Hmm.
and also this is happening. Like,
Yeah.
you didn't think you were gonna have a baby and now you have a beautiful little cherub,
Yeah.
looks like a little Cupid. She's so cute, but it's like like that and how pregnancy must have been, pregnancy for anyone who doesn't have a chronic illness is already kind of scary, right? Because there's so
Yeah.
much unknown. But
Hmm.
what was it like for you going through that, knowing you had endo and all of these things?
Oh, yeah, it was tough. I had a lot of complications during my pregnancy, which made the journey a little bit nerve-wracking, just in the sense of like, okay, I was kind of told throughout wouldn't it could not be a thing potentially. And then for it to happen, you're kind of always, I think every person who's pregnant like feels this way, but you're like, okay, I made it another week or I made it a month or,
Mm.
with all the rates of certain things. But yeah, I enjoy motherhood way more than pregnancy. And with my endometriosis in the mix, like I am always honest about this, but I did feel pain and discomfort, and I had bleeding during my pregnancy and
Mm.
different things here and there that popped up. But I always had a great team of medical providers alongside me, and that was always helpful peace of mind. And again, having other individuals with endo go through pregnancy and have beautiful, healthy babies, like that was also something that I was looking to and grateful for them sharing their story. So, yeah, it was a definite journey, but I feel very blessed and honored to be a mom and also a mom to a daughter to let
Mm.
her know that again her body is beautiful and her period is beautiful and even if she experiences pain, like we're in it together and mama's going to fight alongside you to get answers and pain management and that she's not alone, right? So it's a blessing all in itself. But
It's
it's
so
yeah.
beautiful. Yes, and I can relate as a mom with a
Yeah.
daughter in like how the relationship that we have with ourselves is what comes first. And by that I mean like by us learning to love our bodies, we can teach them, like we can
Yeah.
model that, we can be an example. And because so much of parenting is just being an example, honestly. Like they're
Hmm.
gonna remember the way that we behave more than they're gonna remember the things that we say, right?
Hmm.
She's gonna remember seeing me working all the time more than she's gonna remember me telling her to pick up her stuff off the floor.
Yeah.
Um, so it's so important that like I check myself on that too. And I think there's an element of there's so much more gratitude. I always say that gratitude is the twin to sadness because
Hmm.
when we think about the things that we would be devastated to not have, it makes us so much more grateful that we do have them, right?
Totally.
I didn't think I was going to have a family of my own, and I do today. And it's like, it makes
Hmm.
me all the more grateful. So I think having endo and being able to go through this journey, as difficult as it was,
Hmm.
having that kind of light at the end of the tunnel,
Hmm.
is amazing. And was it becoming a mother that inspired your book, which we're going to talk about, or was it kind of something that you had in mind before?
Yes and no, like at the same time, like I find on maternity leave, I wanted to find a bit of myself. And again, like that same mindset of, you have to find your identity in yourself to feel like you can show up for others.
Hmm.
And so to find a little bit of myself, I've always wanted to write a engaging and thoughtful period book that talked about things in a fun, engaging way, but also included things like period pain is not normal and to find a supportive doctor and symptoms of periods that are common and all of the things. I just felt like my education had a lot of gaps. And so I was motivated for a long time to write a children's book around periods, first period specifically, but it's open to
Mm,
anyone who just wants to learn more about their period. But I was really motivated. I had a lot of fun writing it, and it took about a year and a half to get the whole project complete with
mm.
illustrations in place. But yeah, it's out in the world. The older you grow, a book for your first period, and I'm just really proud of it. And I'm proud that there's actually a book on the market that does include endometriosis. It's a large word
Yes.
for a children's book, some would argue, but
Endometriosis. They're like trying to spell their name. I'm like,
but I always look back at my argument, to having a large word in a children's book is that, I wish I at least seen the word growing up to know
hmm.
that period pain could be caused by something and it's not your body working against you. It's something that is causing that pain. So that was the reasoning behind it. So yeah, I'm really, really blessed to have it out and yeah, that's
I
that's
I love
out and
it.
available.
You guys, I'm
Yeah.
linking it below. The older you grow, it's so beautiful. I'm getting one for my daughter,
Oh,
because
cool.
just being able to have a visual and a tool to kind of guide the conversation. I've had a period for a lot of my life. I don't know how to talk to her about. here's a pat, here's a cup, here's a, but it's
Yeah.
so good that there's this resource for educators as well. I really, I shared about it on my Instagram. If you're an educator,
Mm.
get this book for your students, get this book for the youth in your life. Boys should read this book. Everyone should read this
Yeah.
book, like
Yeah.
they should just be aware of this. So
Yes.
I really, really support it in that
Oh,
way.
thank you. Thank you. And
Uh,
yeah, just on that point too, like it's an approachable way to talk about periods. Cause like you kind of said, it's
mhm.
like, oh, like how do we talk about this? Or like, is it time? Or like
Yeah.
how do we do this? I got you. Like
Yes.
it's all in that book and it just makes it fun and engaging and yeah.
And it's
It's
beautiful, like, even the cover is so
oh, thank
beautiful with the,
you.
like, pad on it, 'cause that was something I was always like, even though I used it, I'm like, "This is grossing people out," like, I don't want my partner to see that, like, I don't want him to have to go to buy me pads at the store, like, all of these things. So normalizing it is so, so beautiful, and I loved what you said about knowing that it's not your body working against you. I think that's
Mhm.
huge, huge, huge,
Mhm.
huge, because in the work that I do with emotions, like that is our body's way of communicating with us. But I always share that there's so many ways that our body communicates with us, and that
Mhm.
there's just things beyond our control sometimes. It's not always
Mhm.
oh, something's wrong with me, I'm broken
Mhm.
kind of thing,
Mhm. Yeah.
and I know that it can probably feel that way with chronic illness. I mean, I dealt with
Mhm.
chronic pain for a really long time years ago, but there was so much beneath that,
Mhm.
and I'm glad, I'm fortunate that I don't deal with that anymore and I haven't for some time,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
when you're going through it, you can really feel like I'm broken in some way. And
Yeah.
and you're not. You're so far from being broken.
No, you're not in any way, I feel like I'm stronger because of my illness, and I feel like I
Mhm.
found a part of myself that I just never knew was there, and, so yeah, if you're listening and you have a chronic illness, like, your body is beautiful, and your diverse experiences
Mhm.
bring are so important to bring to the table, and, you're still able to do the things that you love, even if it's not the day you wanna do it because of a flare-up, like, the next day is waiting for you to dive into that passion or whatever it is. And there's a community of supporters with whatever illness you have that you can talk to or lean on. So I just want to remind you of that. Like you're still worthy of everything in life that you want to go after, even if there's an illness attached to that.
Yes. Oh my God. Such a beautiful,
Mhm.
beautiful message, Emily. I'm so glad that I could have you on to share because, guys, I'm linking her
Mhm.
YouTube channel below. She didn't want me to, but I'm linking it because she's so vulnerable and authentic.
Oh,
And
thank you. You too.
it's thank you, but it's beautiful to see. It's what I want more people to see, because it just makes it okay.
Hmm.
It makes it okay. All of it is okay. And there's a different side of it and there's more to it like you said. So
Hmm.
speaking of more to it, kind of what's happening right now with the political advocacy stuff, like what's I
Yeah.
know you're on mat leave and you have a baby. That's a lot.
We're working. Um, we're doing a lot. Like Ontario wise, there's a petition for the provincial Ontario government to include endometriosis in a multitude of things, like including research, funding, but as well as the Ontario educational curriculum. So definitely a huge push petition wise in Ontario. Federally, we're working to get a national action plan for endo. Australia, France, and Scotland are leading the way with one. So we believe that Canada should be the next in line to get one developed. So we have a huge team of volunteers that are working to get that going. So yes, lots politically. There's lots of room for volunteers as well if you're passionate about endometriosis support. And that's through endoactact.ca. They're a great organization for endometriosis in Canada.
Amazing. I will have that linked below so that if you are someone that wants to get involved in that, you have the information that you need. And I highly encourage you to follow Emily as well. I'm posting her details in the description because I mean, you're the only person that I've seen talk
Yeah.
about this. I'm sure there's lots of other people that you've come across since, but
Mhm.
it's just sharing resources, if you're not part of this community, you might not know.
Right.
And I hope that the listeners can be inspired by your your vulnerability, your authenticity, your humanness, your
Mm,
gracefulness about it all. It's
mm.
really inspiring, to
Thank
use
you.
your experience to help others is like my philosophy. It's why I'm doing this podcast.
Yeah, thank you for everything you're doing. Like this, it's amazing, and also vulnerability there too. Like it's
Thank
not
you.
always easy, but you make it look easy as
Oh,
well. So
thank you. I want it to be easy. I want it to be easier for people. So I hope the more we
yeah.
talk about this, the easier it can feel, the safer you can feel with it. Guys, check
Mhm.
Emily out. Emily, I want you to just normally I ask people to leave some words for the audience
Yeah.
because that's kind of what you do on podcasts. You've said so many great words. What I want you to do is leave some words for a young girl who is struggling with endo.
Yeah. Um, to you listening, your pain is valid and it's real and it's not in your head. And there is a doctor out there that will believe you. Keep pushing and keep putting one foot in front of the other to find that doctor because it is so worth getting pain management for your body. Your body is beautiful and unique, and that makes you you. And so, if you have endometriosis, you're part of a cool crew of 1 in 10 around the world. So, you're definitely not alone, and we're with you every step of the way. So, that's what I would just say to that person.
Amazing. Thank you so much,
Mhm.
Emily.
Thanks
Guys,
for having me.
oh, this is so amazing. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, let me know. Leave a review, rate on Spotify, message me on Instagram. You know the drill. And check out Emily, and all the details will be below. And I cannot wait to for you to hear this and
Yeah,
see you on the next episode. Okay,
thank
bye.
you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It would mean so much if you could subscribe, leave a review, share with your friends and family, and let me know what you think by going to my Instagram at mighty_emotions and connecting with me and letting me know what you loved about today's episode. It really means a lot that you support this podcast, and I love coming to you each week with a new episode. So be sure to subscribe, let me know what you think, and take care of yourself.